Hi friends, it's Tamesia Marie, aka the Hot Girl Professor, and I'm here to teach you why communication is actually key. I use my communications degree to break down pop culture phenomena, dissect common relationship issues, whether platonic or romantic, and give advice on self-development. Today's video is about online deception and catfishing. All the articles that ground this video are going to be linked in the description below, and without further ado, let's get started. Online deception is a common strategy used for online dating because it helps people get first dates. They present to be the best versions of themselves, therefore people want to go on dates with them. But we're actually going to figure out if it helps build a relationship long term, if it helps get them that second date. Or we're going to figure out if people use deception, does that deter them from getting a second date? So what is deception exactly? Deception is any type of misinformation or misconception that you portray about your personal interests, your personality, or your appearance. The scholarly consensus is that most deception actually is a small but exaggerated form of something that is true about yourself, but you tweak it so it looks a little better on your online profile. In the case study by Sharabi, 94 people were surveyed before and after a first date that they went on. They used email to track communication between the two people. The results indicated that the participants' perception of their partner's deception, not their own, negatively impacted whether or not they wanted to go on a second date or not. So what does that really mean? That means that if I perceive the person that I went on a date with to have sort of misrepresented or misconstrued their identity, that's going to negatively affect how I view a second date with that person, not if I had any deception of my own and whether that played in. So the results indicated that the participants' perception of their partner's deception, not their own, negatively impacted the results of their first date. So that essentially means that if I went on a date and I perceived someone to have lied about their identity, misrepresented any part of their identity, that's going to make me have a negative perception of how our first date went. It doesn't matter if I did any deception on my behalf. I think that they're being dishonest. I think that the first date went wrong. So you're probably wondering, why do people deceive online if it's probably going to end up turning out badly? Well, people deceive online largely because of anonymity. As we know, most of the time, you're not meeting up with the people that you're communicating with online or that you're swiping with online. So the fact that you're anonymous keeps your identity hidden, and you can essentially be whoever you want to be. If you're actually planning on meeting up with people, your desire to be deceptive actually decreases. So for people who plan on never meeting up in person, they don't have to worry about whether or not their partner is going to figure out if they were lying on their profile. Scholars have also stated that while you're online, you operate with the basis that you believe everyone is pretty much telling the truth. You think that everyone is pretty much being honest about who they say they are. So if you see something on a profile that seems a little too good to be true, you're basing that off the assumption that they're mostly telling the truth, but they could be lying about a certain part of their profile or a certain part of their identity. Therefore, after scrolling through a profile and talking to someone online, you're pretty much going to assume that whoever you met online is who you're going to meet in real life. Another reason why people might misconstrue parts of their identity is to attract a more attractive partner. So usually if someone is scrolling or they're on an online dating profile and they find people that they think are a little bit out of their league, a little bit more attractive than them, a little bit more athletic, whatever it may be, they'll tweak their profile to match that of the person that they're interested in attracting or the person that they're interested in getting the attention of. On the flip side, people are less likely to use those same strategies for partners that they think are less attractive than they are. They're generally more so okay with presenting as who they are rather than trying to tweak their profile to meet a certain niche or a certain demographic of the person. They're more so okay with portraying themselves as who they are rather than tweaking their profile to match that of someone who's more attractive than they are. The researchers were able to detect 4 ways you can know if someone is being deceptive online. One of the limitations, a quick disclaimer, I do believe it is a limitation to use email because that is not the way that most people communicate when trying to build a romantic relationship. So to apply email exchange to text messages will be a little bit difficult, but the message and the idea is still there. So these 4 linguistic strategies have been empirically linked to deception, and researchers have good explanations to back up that empirically linked data. So the first is that individuals who may be lying will use more verbose or wordy language in their messages online. Why? This is because by telling an elaborate story using more words, people who are deceiving others online will be able able to have an elaborate story that they can follow. So you might be asking why, and that's because sending wordier messages allows people who are deceiving online to have a controlled setting to tell an elaborate story. This is supported by past research that proves that liars produce more words synchronously and asynchronously, which means in person and in online communication platform. The second linguistic element is that liars use less exclusive wording. What is exclusive wording exactly? Those are words like but, except, never, and that is because of an increased demand in their cognitive resources. Lying is a complex task, so by using fewer exclusive words, that prevents the person that they're lying to from asking too many questions and poking holes in their story. The third linguistic element is that people use more negatively valenced emotions when they're lying. What exactly is that? So liars will convey themselves as being hurt by their nasty behavior, and they have all these heightened emotions. They're in a fit of rage, or they're like deeply troubled or deeply disappointed with you. So everything in their emotions is essentially heightened. And why is that? That's because they may have a fear of guilt or a fear of getting caught. So oftentimes if someone is accusing you of lying or accusing you of cheating and they have really heightened emotions and passion behind it, it's often because they're actually doing it themselves and they're projecting that onto you. The fourth linguistic element is that they'll use fewer self-references. For example, I, me, myself. So why would a liar do that? They do that to dissociate themselves with the story that they're telling, and that helps create a cognitive buffer between them and their deception. So essentially they're able to separate themselves from their deception, making it easier to sort of have a sense of self and having their deception be something that they're actively engaging in instead of them being both synonymous. Who I am is my deception and my deception is who I am. They're separate. So in summary, you can use these four linguistic elements to determine if the person that you're talking to online is lying and is deceiving you. Researchers have determined that these linguistic strategies work 61% of the time, which is more than 50%, so you're probably going to be right if you trust your gut and use these linguistic elements to help prove your case. Before you get on your high horse and start writing everyone off as being a liar or being deceptive, you have to look at the double standard. This research goes to show that our perceptions of other people deceiving us is wrong, and we should look out for it, and we should tell these people that they're wrong, when in reality, most of us actually engage in the same strategies that we're calling wrong or immoral. This is because of something called the self-other asymmetry perception bias. And this bias is essentially saying that we underestimate our own abilities to be flawed human beings in relation to other people. So we're always going to assume that other people are more wrong than we are. This is why if someone is lying to you on the internet, you're going to be more likely to shun or look down upon this person than if you were to do the same thing that they did to someone else. So essentially, people will try and get away with as much as possible before they believe they'll get caught. If they plan on meeting someone in person, they're less likely to engage in these strategies, or they'll engage in minimally deceptive strategies because they plan on seeing this person in real life and they want a second date essentially. The more you deceive, the less likely you are to have a great first date, to have that be successful, and to get a second date. So the more honest you are about who you are, your interests, your personality, the way you look, the more likely you are to have a successful first date and to get a second date.